Have you ever wondered what it feels like to train your own replacement? To pour your expertise, your strategies, your very soul into mentoring someone, only to watch them use that knowledge to destroy you? What would you do if the person you trusted most in your professional world betrayed you at your moment of greatest triumph? Today, I'm sharing a story that will make you question everything you think you know about loyalty, ambition, and the true cost of success. This is the story of how I went from unemployed and betrayed to building a multi-million-dollar empire, all because someone underestimated what happens when you try to bury someone who's already learned to dig. If stories like this fascinate you, if you love tales of professional revenge and incredible comebacks, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Now, let me take you inside the boardroom where it all began. The Heritage Lane conference room smelled like expensive leather and desperation. I sat across from their executive team, my presentation slides glowing on the wall-mounted screen, knowing this was the moment that would define my career at Brightwell and Company. 40 million over 3 years, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Full creative control, guaranteed campaign integrity, and a performance bonus structure that rewards results, not just billings. Executive VP Sam Decker leaned forward, his steel-gray eyes studying me intently. And what happens if your creative vision doesn't align with our brand standards? This was the question I'd prepared for. The one that would separate me from every other agency in Chicago. That's why I'm proposing a creative integrity clause, I said, sliding the contract amendment across the mahogany table. If we compromise your brand vision for profit, you walk. No penalties, no questions asked. The room went silent. Sam's eyebrows lifted slightly, the first crack in his poker face all morning. Nobody's ever offered us that before, he said quietly. Nobody's ever been this confident in their work before, I replied. Sam glanced at his team, then back at me. Ms. Holt, you've got yourself a deal. But as I shook his hand, I had no idea I'd just signed my own termination papers. 1 month after the Heritage Lane celebration died down, Charles Brightwell called me into his corner office. At 62, he still commanded respect with his silver hair and navy suits, but today something felt different. Nervous energy radiated from him as he gestured toward the leather chairs facing his desk. Victoria, I have exciting news, he began, his smile too wide. My daughter Lily will be joining us next week. I knew about Lily. Stanford MBA, daddy's money, 0 real-world experience. Every family business had one. Congratulations, Charles. What department will she be starting in? Actually, she'll be shadowing you. He avoided my eyes. Leadership training. Learning from our best. My coffee cup paused halfway to my lips. Shadowing me? Think of it as mentoring. She's bright, ambitious, ready to contribute. I thought the Heritage Lane account would be perfect for her to cut her teeth on. The Heritage Lane account. My Heritage Lane account. The one I'd fought for, negotiated, and won through sheer determination and late nights. Charles, with respect, Heritage Lane is a complex client. They require, I'm sure you'll teach her everything she needs to know, he interrupted, standing to signal the meeting was over. She starts Monday. As I walked back to my office, my assistant Jake looked up from his desk. How'd it go? I just got assigned a babysitting job, I muttered. The CEO's daughter? Jake's eyes widened. Word travels fast around here. I paused at my door. What word? Jake lowered his voice. That she's not just here to learn. Lily Brightwell arrived Monday morning like a hurricane in designer heels. 26, blonde, and armed with an MBA and her father's confidence, she practically bounced into my office at 8 a.m. sharp. Victoria. I'm so excited to work with you. Her handshake was firm, her smile genuine. Dad says you're the best account director in Chicago. Despite my reservations, I found myself warming to her enthusiasm. Well, let's see what you've got. Tell me what you know about Heritage Lane. For the next hour, Lily impressed me. She'd done her homework, studying their quarterly reports, analyzing their competition, even researching their customer demographics. Her insights were sharp, her questions intelligent. "I think their weakness is emotional connection," she said, leaning forward eagerly. "They're selling products, but they should be selling lifestyle." "That's actually brilliant," I admitted. "How did you?" "I spent yesterday at 3 different Heritage Lane stores, watching how customers shop. Most people weren't buying, they were browsing. But the few who purchased big-ticket items? They were imagining themselves in a different life. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all." Over the next few weeks, Lily proved to be the ideal protégé. She absorbed everything: client preferences, negotiation tactics, creative direction. She even started bringing me coffee in the mornings, calling me her work big sister. "I've learned more in 3 weeks than I did in 2 years of business school," she told me one evening as we wrapped up a client presentation. But I noticed how she gripped her pen when speaking, her knuckles white with tension. "You're a natural," I replied, and meant it. Still, something flickered across her face. Was it gratitude or calculation? But late that night, as I finally left the office, I noticed Lily's computer was still on. And she was on a call with someone, speaking in hushed tones with an edge of desperation I'd never heard before. "Yes, I'm getting everything I need," she said. "But what if I'm not ready? What if I can't? Everything she needed for what?" 3 months into Lily's training, I started noticing things. Small things that individually meant nothing, but together formed a pattern that made my stomach clench. My keycard had been acting up, sometimes working, sometimes not. IT claimed it was a system glitch, but it only happened to me. Meanwhile, Lily had been granted access to files I'd never authorized, including my personal client notes and strategy documents. "Just trying to be thorough," she'd explained with that bright smile when I questioned her about it. Then there was the Heritage Lane meeting last Tuesday. I'd prepared the presentation deck, but when we arrived, Lily somehow had her own copy, with subtle changes that improved my original ideas. When Sam Decker complimented the modifications, Lily graciously accepted the praise. "Team effort," she'd said, squeezing my shoulder. "Victoria taught me everything." But the moment that really set off alarm bells was yesterday's conversation with Jake. He'd been my assistant for 3 years, loyal to a fault. Yet when I asked him to schedule a meeting with Charles, he'd hesitated. "Actually, Victoria, I should mention, I've been asked to report to Lily about your activities." "Report what activities?" "Client interactions, meeting schedules, project timelines." She said it was part of her training program. I stared at him. "And you didn't think to tell me?" "I thought you knew," he said weakly. That evening, I stayed late to review the Heritage Lane files. That's when I found it, a memo from Lily to her father, dated just 2 days after she'd started. The subject line made my blood run cold: transition timeline, Victoria Holt account transfer. The memo detailed my client relationships, my negotiation strategies, even my personal rapport with Sam Decker. It read like a blueprint for replacement. At the bottom, in Lily's neat handwriting, recommend 90-day observation period before implementation. 90 days. Tomorrow marked exactly 90 days since she'd started. I arrived at the office Tuesday morning to find my keycard completely dead. The security guard, looking uncomfortable, directed me to HR. "Ms. Holt?" Patricia from Human Resources stood in the doorway, her expression carefully neutral. "Could we have a word?" The conference room felt like a tribunal. Patricia sat across from me, flanked by Charles and the company's legal counsel. But it was the person at the head of the table who made my heart stop. Lily. Sitting in my chair, wearing a navy suit identical to her father's, with a manila folder spread before her like a deck of cards. "Victoria," Charles began, his voice heavy with false regret, "due to recent restructuring needs, we're making some difficult decisions." "Restructuring?" I kept my voice level. "What restructuring?" Lily slid a document across the table. "Your termination letter. Effective immediately." The words blurred on the page. On what grounds? Performance issues, Lily said smoothly. Missed deadlines, client dissatisfaction, failure to meet strategic objectives. I laughed, actually laughed. Client dissatisfaction? I just delivered a $40 million deal. Which you nearly lost due to poor communication and unrealistic promises, she countered, opening her folder. I have documentation of at least 6 instances where Sam Decker expressed concerns about your approach. That's impossible. Sam and I have an excellent, Lily corrected. He's been working with me for the past month. The transition has been seamless. The room spun. Transition? Charles finally spoke. Lily has been shadowing you to ensure continuity. She's fully prepared to take over your accounts. My accounts? I stood up so fast my chair toppled backward. The accounts I brought in? The relationships I built? Company accounts, Lily said calmly. Company relationships. Which will continue under new leadership. Patricia pushed a box across the table. Your personal items. Security will escort you out. As I numbly packed my career into a cardboard box, Lily approached. Nothing personal, Victoria. You taught me everything I know. I looked into her eyes and saw my own ambition reflected back, twisted into something cold and calculating. Not everything, I said quietly. She tilted her head. What do you mean? You'll find out. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of rage, grief, and planning. I sat in my Lincoln Park apartment, surrounded by industry magazines and legal documents, my laptop open to a dozen tabs of research. My phone buzzed constantly, colleagues expressing shock, former clients asking what happened, headhunters circling like vultures. But I ignored them all. I had more important work to do. By Thursday evening, I'd filled 3 legal pads with notes, flowcharts, and strategy outlines. The picture was becoming clear. Lily hadn't just stolen my job. She'd executed a calculated takeover, using me as her unwitting teacher. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd assumed I was just another obstacle to be removed. My phone rang. Jake's name appeared on the screen. Victoria, I'm so sorry, he said immediately. I had no idea they were planning this. I thought I was just helping with her training. It's not your fault, Jake. Tell me what's happening there. Chaos. Lily's trying to run 3 accounts simultaneously, but she's making mistakes. The Henderson campaign launch got delayed because she couldn't handle the client feedback. The Patterson project is over budget because she approved changes without checking costs. What about Heritage Lane? Jake hesitated. That's the weird thing. Sam Decker has been asking for you specifically. Lily keeps telling him you're on vacation, but he seems suspicious. A spark of hope ignited in my chest. Has he said anything else? Just that he wants to schedule a meeting with the original account team when you get back. Lily's been stalling him for days. After Jake hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. Time to study that Heritage Lane contract. Specifically, the creative integrity clause I'd fought so hard to include. The clause was buried in subsection 14.3, barely 2 paragraphs long. But it was ironclad. If Heritage Lane could prove that Brightwell and company had compromised their brand vision for profit, they could terminate the contract immediately with no penalties. I smiled for the first time in days. Lily had learned my strategies, my client management techniques, even my presentation style. But she'd never learned the most important lesson: always have an escape plan. Friday morning, I walked into the Cook County Clerk's office with $500 cash and a business license application. By noon, Holt Strategies officially existed. My lawyer, Janet Murphy, met me at a coffee shop in River North. Victoria, you need to be careful. Your non-compete clause is solid for 6 months. I'm not competing, I said, sliding the contract across the table. I'm providing strategic consultation services. She studied the paperwork. That's actually brilliant. You're not offering marketing services directly, so the non-compete doesn't apply. But you're positioning yourself to pivot the moment it expires. Exactly. And in the meantime, I'm going to do what I do best, build relationships. The next week, I spent my days in coffee shops, restaurants, and hotel lobbies. Not pitching services, but reconnecting with old contacts. Industry veterans who'd watched my career, clients who'd valued my work, creative directors who'd thrived under my leadership. The message was always the same: I'm taking some time to reassess my career direction. Let's grab coffee and catch up. But underneath the casual conversations, I was laying groundwork. Planting seeds. Building the foundation for what would come next. By Wednesday, I'd had lunch with 12 key industry contacts. By Friday, that number had doubled. Word was spreading: Victoria Holt was available, and she wasn't going quietly. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Kevin Nash, a creative director I'd worked with at my previous agency, called me Saturday afternoon. "Victoria, I just got fired from Brightwell," he said. "What happened?" "Lily happened. She's been cleaning house, replacing anyone who worked closely with you. 3 of us got the axe yesterday." I felt a familiar surge of anger, but also opportunity. "Kevin, how would you feel about freelancing for a strategic consultancy?" "I'd feel great, especially if it pays better than Brightwell." "It will." "And Kevin? Bring your portfolio. We're going to need it." Within 2 weeks, I had my core team. Kevin Nash brought his creative genius and his network. Maria Santos, a brilliant data analyst who'd also been restructured by Lily, joined us with her laptop and a burning desire for revenge. Tom Fletcher, a project manager with 15 years of experience, completed our initial crew. We worked out of my apartment initially, laptop spread across my dining room table, surviving on coffee and takeout. The energy was electric, 4 professionals who'd been discarded, now working together to prove our worth. "This feels like a startup," Maria said, analyzing market data on her 3rd monitor setup. "It is a startup," I replied, reviewing client research. "The question is, are we going to be the next big thing, or are we going to flame out in 6 months?" Tom looked up from his project timeline. "With this team, we're going to be the next big thing." Our first break came from an unexpected source. Jennifer Lake, a former client from my Brightwell days, called me directly. "Victoria, I heard what happened." "I'm furious." "It's business, Jennifer. These things happen." "No, it's not business. It's personal. You saved our company's reputation during that product recall crisis. You worked 18-hour days to manage the fallout. And this is how they repay you?" I stayed silent, letting her vent. "I'm pulling our retainer from Brightwell. If you're starting something new, I want to be your first client." "Jennifer, I appreciate the support, but I can't officially take on clients for 4 more months. Then I'll hire you as a consultant. You can advise us on selecting a new agency. One that happens to be owned by someone I trust." By the end of the call, we had our first contract. Not huge, $15,000 for strategic consultation, but enough to keep us afloat and prove our concept. "We're not just surviving," I told the team that evening. "We're thriving." But even as we celebrated, I kept checking my phone. No call from Sam Decker yet. That silence was about to break. Sam Decker called me on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing creative concepts with Kevin. His voice was tense, frustrated. "Victoria, we need to talk. Off the record." My heart jumped. "Of course. What's going on? Can you meet me at the Palmer House?" "The lobby bar, 1 hour." I found Sam in a corner booth, nursing a whiskey and looking every bit the executive under pressure. He stood when he saw me, his handshake firm but his eyes troubled. "Sam, what's wrong?" He slid a tablet across the table. Look at this campaign mock-up. Tell me what you see. I studied the screen, my stomach dropping with each swipe. The Heritage Lane Autumn campaign, my campaign, the one I'd spent months developing, had been butchered. The sophisticated lifestyle imagery I'd proposed had been replaced with generic stock photos. The clever tagline I'd crafted had been changed to something I in turn could have written. This isn't what we agreed on, I said carefully. It's not even close. Your replacement, Lily. She promised this would maintain the creative vision we discussed. Instead, she's delivered something that looks like it came from a budget agency. Sam took a long sip of his whiskey. There's more. She's been pushing for additional services that weren't in our original scope. Optimization opportunities, she calls them. Each one comes with a substantial fee increase. My pulse quickened. What kind of optimization? Social media management, influencer partnerships, digital advertising placement. None of it was in our original agreement, but she insists it's necessary for campaign success. I leaned forward. Sam, do you have the original contract with you? He pulled out a thick folder. Every page, every addendum, every clause. I flipped through the pages until I found what I was looking for. Subsection 14.3. The Creative Integrity Clause. Sam, read this section. Carefully. He studied the text, his eyes widening. If Heritage Lane can prove that Brightwell and Company has compromised their brand vision for profit, you can terminate the contract immediately. No penalties, no exit fees. But we'd need to prove compromise for profit. I gestured toward the tablet. You have proof of creative compromise. And you have documentation of unauthorized fee increases. That's profit motive. Sam stared at me. You put this clause in specifically for this situation. I put it in to protect both of us. I just never imagined I'd be on the other side of it. Over the next week, Sam and I worked together to build the case. He provided emails, contract modifications, and campaign materials. I provided the legal framework and strategic analysis. The evidence was damning. Lily had systematically dismantled every element of our original creative vision while increasing project costs by 34%. Her emails showed a clear pattern of prioritizing billings over brand integrity. But the smoking gun came from an unexpected source. Jake called me, I told Sam during our Thursday meeting. He's been keeping detailed records. Jake had documented every meeting, every decision, every corner cut. As my former assistant, he'd been privy to the original strategy documents. He'd watched Lily systematically destroy what we'd built. Why is he helping you? Sam asked. Because he believes in the work we did. And because he's horrified by what Lily's doing to the company. I handed Sam a USB drive. 3 months of documentation. Meeting notes, email chains, budget modifications, creative revisions. Everything you need to prove breach of contract. Sam plugged the drive into his laptop. As he scrolled through the files, his expression darkened. She's been lying to us about everything. The campaign delays, the budget overruns, even your supposed vacation. She told us you were taking time off to recharge after the successful launch. I was fired 3 months ago, Sam. I know that now. He closed the laptop. Victoria, I'm terminating the contract tomorrow. But I have a bigger question. What's that? Are you ready to take Heritage Lane on as your first major client? I looked at him across the table, this man who'd trusted me with his company's reputation, who'd been betrayed by my replacement, who was now offering me a second chance. Sam, I've been ready for 3 months. Then let's make this official. I want to hire Holt Strategies. The moment I'd been working toward was finally here. But as I shook Sam's hand, I knew this was just the beginning. Lily had taught me the most important lesson of all, never underestimate someone you've underestimated. The Heritage Lane contract termination hit Brightwell and Company like a financial earthquake. $40 million in guaranteed revenue, gone overnight. According to my sources, Charles had called an emergency board meeting, and Lily had been locked in her office for 6 hours straight. But they had no idea what was coming next. Sam and I structured the Holt Strategies agreement carefully. A 3-year contract worth $35 million, less than the original Brightwell deal, but with performance bonuses that could push it higher. More importantly, it included expanded services, brand strategy, creative direction, and market analysis. We're not just replacing Brightwell, Sam explained to his board. We're upgrading. The contract signing took place in Heritage Lane's executive conference room. The same room where I'd first pitched them 18 months ago. This time, I wasn't fighting for recognition. I was claiming what was rightfully mine. After the paperwork was complete, Sam walked me to the elevator. Victoria, I have to ask. Did you plan this from the beginning? Plan what? The clause that let us walk away. The relationship building. The team you assembled. It all feels very strategic. I smiled. Sam, I planned for the possibility that someone might try to undermine our partnership. I just never imagined it would be my own replacement. And now? Now I'm planning for success. Heritage Lane deserves the best campaign we can deliver. Everything else is just business. But as I drove back to our new office, a sleek space in River North that we'd signed a lease for that morning, I couldn't help but smile. Lily had spent 3 months learning my strategies, my techniques, my client management approach. She'd forgotten the most important lesson, I'd been learning too. The phone rang as I pulled into the parking garage. Maria's voice was excited. Victoria, you need to get up here. We've got 5 new inquiry calls since the Heritage Lane announcement hit the industry blogs. 5? Including 2 from current Brightwell clients. Word is spreading that their top talent is jumping ship. I rode the elevator to our new office, where Kevin, Maria, and Tom were fielding calls and reviewing proposals. The energy was infectious. We were no longer just survivors. We were competitors. Boss, Kevin called from his desk. Channel 7 wants to do a business segment on the agency shakeup. They want to interview you tomorrow. I looked around at my team, at our gleaming new office, at the future we were building together. Set it up, I said. Time to tell my story. The Channel 7 business reporter, Jennifer Kane, met me at our office Thursday morning. Professional, sharp, and clearly intrigued by the story of the account director who'd been fired and then stolen her former agency's biggest client. This is quite an office for a company that's only been operational for 2 weeks, she observed, setting up her camera. We believe in investing in our future, I replied, adjusting my navy blazer, the same one I'd worn to that first Heritage Lane meeting. The interview was straightforward. She asked about my background, my experience at Brightwell, and the circumstances of my departure. I kept my answers professional, focusing on the opportunity to build something new rather than dwelling on the betrayal. Some people might call this revenge, Jennifer said. I call it competition. The client chose quality over politics. That's how the market is supposed to work. What about the relationship with Lily Brightwell? She was your protégé. I paused, choosing my words carefully. I taught her everything she could learn. But experience can't be taught, it has to be earned. The segment aired that evening. By the next morning, we had 12 new inquiries, including one from a Fortune 500 company that had been disappointed with their current agency's performance. But the real impact came from an unexpected source. Jake called me at 8 a.m. Victoria, you need to know what's happening here. After the news segment aired, 3 more senior staff members submitted resignations. The creative team is in chaos, and clients are asking questions. What kind of questions? About stability. About continuity. About whether they should reconsider their partnerships. I felt a moment of sympathy for Charles. He'd built Brightwell and Company over 30 years, and now it was crumbling because of his daughter's ambition. Jake, are you okay there? For now. But Victoria? I don't think I'll be staying much longer. Well, if you ever want to work for a company that values loyalty, I'll keep that in mind. After Jake hung up, I called a team meeting. Kevin, Maria, and Tom gathered around the conference table, their faces reflecting the same mixture of excitement and determination I felt. We're not just growing, I told them. We're winning. But winning comes with responsibilities. We need to be better than what we replaced. What do you mean? Maria asked. We need to be the agency that treats employees with respect. That honors client relationships. That builds something lasting. Tom nodded. So we're not just taking down Brightwell. We're proving there's a better way. Exactly. And we're just getting started. The second major client defection came 3 weeks later. Patterson Industries, a manufacturing giant that had been with Brightwell for 5 years, called me directly. MS. Holt, we've been watching your work with Heritage Lane. Impressive results in a very short time frame. I'd been expecting this call. Patterson's CEO, Robert Murphy, had always been frustrated with Brightwell's lack of innovation. Under Lily's leadership, their campaigns had become even more stagnant. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. I appreciate your confidence. We're prepared to offer you a 12-month contract to handle our product launch campaign. $25 million budget, full creative control. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt the weight of responsibility. 2 major clients in 6 weeks. We were becoming a real threat. Mr. Murphy, I'm honored by your trust. We'll deliver results that exceed your expectations. After the call, I walked to the window overlooking the Chicago River. Our reflection stared back at me. A woman who'd been discarded, who'd rebuilt herself, who was now threatening to destroy the company that had betrayed her. Kevin appeared beside me. Penny, for your thoughts? Just thinking about how quickly things can change. 6 months ago, I was someone else's employee. Now I'm responsible for 12 people's livelihoods. Having second thoughts? No. Just making sure we're building something better than what we're replacing. That afternoon, I got a call from an unexpected source. Charles Brightwell himself. Victoria, I think we should talk. About what, Charles? About ending this war before it destroys both of us. I looked around our bustling office, at the team that had followed me, at the success we'd built together. I'm not at war with anyone, Charles. I'm just running a business. You're systematically targeting my clients. I'm providing better service to companies that aren't satisfied with their current agency. That's called competition. There was a long pause. What do you want? I want to build the best marketing agency in Chicago. If that threatens you, maybe you should ask yourself why. Charles hung up without saying goodbye. That evening, Maria brought me the latest industry reports. Brightwell and Company had lost 4 major clients in 2 months. Their revenue was down 35%, and they'd had to lay off 8 employees. You're not celebrating, Maria observed. Those are good people losing their jobs because of bad leadership. That's not something to celebrate. But you're winning. We're succeeding. There's a difference. The Chicago Marketing Association's annual gala was the industry's biggest event. 500 professionals, countless deals made over cocktails, and awards that could define careers. I'd been invited as a presenter, Entrepreneur of the Year, for building a successful agency in less than 6 months. The irony wasn't lost on me. Last year, I'd attended as Brightwell's senior account director. This year, I was their biggest threat. I chose a black evening gown, elegant but not flashy. Tonight wasn't about proving anything. It was about showing the industry that Holt Strategies was here to stay. The ballroom at the Palmer House was packed. I recognized faces from across the industry, former colleagues, current competitors, potential clients. The energy was electric, but I noticed the subtle divisions. People were choosing sides. Victoria. Jennifer Kane from Channel 7 approached with her photographer. Mind if we get a quick shot for tomorrow's business segment? As the camera flashed, I noticed a familiar figure across the room. Lily Brightwell, in a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, holding court with a group of junior executives. Our eyes met across the crowded ballroom. She raised her glass in a mock toast, then turned back to her conversation. "Looks like you two have some history," Jennifer observed. "We have a professional relationship," I replied diplomatically. But as the evening progressed, I felt the weight of stares, the whispered conversations, the subtle tension that comes when former allies find themselves on opposite sides. The awards ceremony began at 9. I sat at the Heritage Lane table, Sam and his team flanking me like bodyguards. When my name was called for the Entrepreneur Award, the applause was enthusiastic but not universal. 6 months ago, I was unemployed. I began my acceptance speech. Today, I'm honored to lead a team of remarkable professionals who believe that success comes from serving clients, not just billing them. The audience laughed appreciatively, but I noticed several tables where the laughter was forced. We're not here to destroy the competition. We're here to raise the bar for everyone. As I returned to my seat, I caught sight of Lily at the Brightwell table. She was clapping, but her smile was ice cold. The real confrontation was coming. The ballroom was thinning out as the evening wound down. I was saying goodbye to Sam and his team when I felt a tap on my shoulder. "Victoria. We need to talk." Lily stood behind me, her red dress a stark contrast to the emptying ballroom. Up close, I could see the strain in her eyes, the tension in her smile. "Of course. What's on your mind?" She nodded toward the hotel bar. "Privately. We found a quiet corner booth, the kind where Chicago's power brokers had been making deals for decades." Lily ordered a martini. I stuck with water. "You're enjoying this," she said without preamble. "Enjoying what?" "Watching Brightwell burn. Stealing our clients. Turning the industry against us." I studied her face, seeing traces of the eager student who'd once called me her work big sister. "Lily, I'm not stealing anything. I'm competing. You're using everything I taught you, everything you taught me." I couldn't help but laugh. "You spent 3 months learning my strategies, my client relationships, my presentation techniques. Then you fired me and tried to take credit for my work. That's business." "No, that's betrayal. Business is what I'm doing now, building something better than what you destroyed." Lily leaned forward, her mask finally slipping. "You think you're so clever with your little contract clauses and your loyal team. But you're forgetting something." "What's that?" "I'm Charles Brightwell's daughter. I have resources you can't imagine. Connections you'll never have. Money that can outlast any startup." I smiled. "You're right. You have all of those things. Then why aren't you afraid?" "Because you're still missing the most important ingredient. Which is respect. Your employees don't respect you because you've never earned it. Your clients don't respect you because you've never delivered on your promises. And your competitors don't respect you because you've never won anything on your own merit." Lily's face flushed. "I won Heritage Lane. You inherited a closed deal. Then you lost it because you couldn't handle the responsibility. I can destroy you. One phone call to the right people, and your little agency will be finished." I leaned back, completely calm. "You can try. But here's what you don't understand. I've already won." "What do you mean?" "I've built something that doesn't depend on fear or family connections. I've created a team that chooses to work with me, not because they have to, but because they want to. I've earned the respect of clients who trust me to deliver results, not just bill them." I stood up. "You taught me the most valuable lesson of all, Lily. You showed me exactly what kind of leader I never want to become." As I walked away, I heard her call out, "This isn't over, Victoria." I paused at the bar entrance. "You're right. It's not. But you've already lost." The next morning brought vindication in the form of 3 new client inquiries and a call from the Chicago Tribune's business editor. Word of our success, and Brightwell's decline, was spreading beyond the industry. "We want to do a feature story on the changing landscape of Chicago marketing," the editor explained. "David versus Goliath, but with a twist." I agreed to the interview, but insisted on one condition: the story had to be about building something positive, not just tearing something down. The article ran the following Sunday. The headline read, "From Fired to Formidable: How One Executive Built an Agency Empire in 6 Months." It was fair, balanced, and devastating to Brightwell and Company. The reporter had done her homework, interviewing former employees, current clients, and industry analysts. The picture that emerged was of a company that had lost its way under new leadership. But the real impact came from an unexpected source. On Monday morning, Jake called me with news that sent shockwaves through the industry. "Victoria, Charles is stepping down. The board voted no confidence in his leadership, and they're bringing in outside management." "What about Lily?" "She's been reassigned to a consulting role with no client contact." I felt a complex mix of emotions. Satisfaction, yes, but also sadness for the company I'd once been proud to work for. "Jake, what are you going to do?" "Actually, I was hoping we could talk about that. I hear you might have an opening for an operations manager." By the end of the week, Jake had joined our team, bringing with him 3 other talented professionals who'd been casualties of Lily's mismanagement. We were no longer just surviving or even thriving. We were becoming the agency I'd always dreamed of working for, but more than that, I was becoming the leader I'd never had the chance to be under Charles. That Friday, I called a team meeting in our main conference room. 15 people now, triple our original size. The energy was incredible, but as I looked around the table, I realized something profound had shifted inside me. 6 months ago, I'd measured success by deals closed and revenue generated. Now I saw it in the confidence growing in Kevin's creative presentations, in Maria's analytical insights being valued, in the way people stayed late not because they had to, but because they believed in what we were building. 6 months ago, I was unemployed, I began. Today, we're the fastest growing marketing agency in Chicago. But success isn't just about numbers. I gestured toward our wall of client testimonials, award certificates, and team photos. It's about building something that lasts. Something that makes a difference. Something that proves leadership isn't about titles, it's about service. Kevin raised his hand. "What's next, boss?" I smiled, feeling the weight and privilege of that trust. "Next, we prove that we're not just a successful startup. We prove that we're the future of this industry." 1 year after my termination from Brightwell and Company, I stood in the same Palmer House ballroom where I'd been honored as Entrepreneur of the Year. This time, I was receiving the Chicago Business Leader of the Year award. The crowd was different now. Bigger, more diverse, filled with faces I recognized as clients, partners, and team members. In the front row sat Sam Decker, now not just a client but a friend and advisor. "Last year, I told you about raising the bar," I said during my acceptance speech. "Tonight, I want to talk about what we've accomplished together." The numbers were staggering. Holt Strategies had grown to 35 employees. We'd signed contracts worth $120 million. We'd won 7 industry awards and been featured in 3 national publications. But the real victory isn't in the revenue or the recognition, I continued. It's in the relationships we've built, the careers we've launched, and the trust we've earned. As I looked out at the audience, I spotted a familiar figure in the back. Lily Brightwell, dressed simply, looking smaller somehow than she had a year ago. She was applauding, and for the first time in months, her smile seemed genuine. After the ceremony, she approached me near the coat check. "Congratulations, Victoria. You've earned this." "Thank you. How are you doing?" "I'm learning. Working with a smaller firm, starting over. It's humbling." She paused, and I saw that familiar grip on her clutch, the same white-knuckled tension I'd noticed during her training. I've had a lot of time to think about what happened. About why I felt I had to take shortcuts. Starting over can be a gift, I said. It gives you a chance to become who you're meant to be. She nodded, her voice quieter now. I was so terrified of failing, of proving I was just the boss's daughter who couldn't cut it, that I became exactly that. I thought if I could just replicate what you did, steal your playbook, I'd never have to face my own inadequacies. Lily, if you ever want to grab coffee and talk about the industry, I'm around. I'd. Like that, she said, and for the first time, her smile seemed genuinely vulnerable rather than calculated. Maybe you could teach me something I couldn't learn by watching. What's that? How to build something that lasts, starting with building yourself first. As she walked away, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't expected. The cycle was complete, but the story was far from over. 2 years after founding Holt Strategies, I stood in our expanded offices overlooking the Chicago River. The space hummed with activity, account managers on client calls, creative directors sketching campaign concepts, data analysts building performance models. The growth hadn't been without its challenges. We'd maxed out 3 different office spaces, survived 2 cash flow crises when major payments were delayed, and I'd spent countless sleepless nights wondering if we were expanding too fast. There were weeks when I personally guaranteed payroll, and months when we turned down lucrative projects because we simply didn't have the bandwidth. But we'd learned, adapted, grown stronger. We'd grown to 50 employees across 3 departments. The Heritage Lane campaign had won 4 national awards. Patterson Industries had renewed their contract for another 3 years. And we'd just signed our first international client. The London office is confirmed, Maria announced, entering my office with a tablet full of expansion plans. 6-person team, full-service capabilities, opening next month. I nodded, reviewing the financial projections, conservative this time, learned from our early growing pains. And the New York opportunity? 3 potential clients already interested. But we're taking it slow, building the foundation right. We could be operational by Q3 if we stick to the plan. Success had brought hard-earned wisdom about managing growth, maintaining culture, staying true to our values while scaling operations. These were good problems to have, but they were still problems that required careful navigation. My phone buzzed with a text from Sam, lunch tomorrow? Want to discuss the European expansion? I smiled, remembering that first coffee meeting where he'd offered me a second chance. Now he was an investor, an advisor, and a trusted friend. Jake knocked on my door. Victoria, you have a visitor. I looked up to see a young woman in a business suit, clutching a portfolio and looking nervous. Ms. Holt? I'm Emma Rodriguez. I just graduated from Northwestern, and I was wondering if I could have 5 minutes of your time. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Of course. What can I do for you? I want to work for you. I've studied your career, your strategies, your company culture. I know I don't have experience, but I'm willing to learn. I studied her face, seeing traces of my younger self, hungry, determined, ready to prove herself. Emma, what makes you think you want to work in marketing? Because I want to build something that matters. I want to help companies tell their stories in ways that connect with people. And I want to learn from the best. I stood up, walking to the window where I'd spent so many hours planning our future. Emma, I'm going to give you the same advice someone once gave me. Success isn't about who you know or what advantages you start with. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice to become who you're meant to be. I'm willing to sacrifice everything. Good. Because that's what it takes. Not just to succeed, but to build something that lasts. I turned back to her. Start Monday. You'll be working directly with me. As Emma left, practically floating with excitement, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From that first Heritage Lane meeting to this moment, everything had been building towards something bigger. The phone rang. Another potential client, another opportunity, another chance to prove that we were more than just a successful agency, we were the future of our industry. I answered with a smile. Holt Strategies, this is Victoria. The best was yet to come. And there you have it, the incredible true story of how one woman turned the ultimate betrayal into the ultimate victory. Victoria's journey from that conference room to building a multi-million-dollar empire proves that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can become the best thing that ever happened to you. But here's what I want to know. What would you have done in Victoria's position? Would you have fought back like she did, or would you have walked away quietly? Have you ever experienced a professional betrayal that changed the course of your life? And most importantly, what do you think was the key moment that determined Victoria's ultimate success? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing your perspectives on these incredible stories of resilience and revenge. Was it the creative integrity clause that saved her? Her ability to build genuine relationships? Or something else entirely? If this story inspired you, motivated you, or just plain amazed you, show it some love by hitting that like button. Stories like Victoria's deserve to be heard, and your engagement helps these incredible tales of triumph reach the people who need to hear them most. And hey, if you're hungry for more stories about underdogs who refuse to stay down, about professionals who turn setbacks into comebacks, and about the incredible power of strategic thinking combined with unshakable determination, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because trust me, the stories I've got coming up will blow your mind. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to rewrite your story. Share it with that friend who's facing their own professional challenges. Share it with anyone who believes that the best revenge isn't just success, it's massive, undeniable, game-changing success. Until next time, remember, your biggest setback might just be setting you up for your greatest comeback. I'll see you in the next one.